Hello and welcome to Chess with Simon. I'm Simon. This game is played by my cousin Henry against some bloke on the internet. So Henry is black and his opponent plays c4, English opening. Henry plays knight f6. So actually the English opening allows you to avoid the Indian defences, but this guy plays d4 and transposes back into them. Henry plays the fianchetto, offering the King's Indian or the Grunfeld or the Benoni or the Benko or something like this. His opponent plays knight c3, which is the most principled move, supporting a potential e4. Henry lets it happen, bishop g7, e4, so we're in the King's Indian now. Henry plays d6, stopping e5, although actually you can castle there. Bobby Fischer once did and won. And the engines quite like it, actually. It is playable. Anyway, black plays d6, which is the main move. White signals to go for the classical line. Black castles. Bishop d3 is not the most common, so if we look at the live book, Bishop d3 is actually the fourth most popular move. It's quite unpopular, but it still gives white an advantage. The engines want bishop g4 here, but e5 is still a good move because d4 is a little bit less well defended after bishop d3, so that's very smart. Opponent pushes, giving black the c5 square, and then a5 actually reinforces the c5 square because it stops b4. So if you put a knight on c5, it can't be pushed away with b4. Bishop e3 covering the square, knight comes to a6, a3, and actually you can play b4 here on the next move by white. I said you couldn't in a previous video, which I've now deleted, but if you take twice, your rook drops on a8, so b4 is really a threat. Black goes ahead and attacks the bishop to maybe help the knight get to c5. White lets it happen. What was white's alternative? Bishop g5 hitting the queen. That's quite a classic sort of structure. Then f6. So black takes the bishop and plays knight c5, attacking that terrible bishop on d3 and also threatening a fork on b3. White offers the fork. Black misses it and takes the terrible bishop. The engine wants knight b3. Black's still better here, but also that bishop looked to be less good than the knight. Beautiful knight. Although, of course, some people think bishops are better than knights, and some people say the worst bishop is better than the best knight. Discuss f5 is highly thematic in these openings. White takes. Black takes back with the pawn, which is probably more in the spirit of the opening than taking with the bishop, although you can take with the bishop. E4, f4, and black has this space now on the king's side. White has to start attacking on the queen's side, and there white goes. Black puts the rook right on the g file, opposite the king. White plays c5, which the engine wants, and it's a very human move. It's very thematic. And then black starts charging this pawn down the h file in the hope of bothering the g pawn. And even because if white plays h3 to stop black's h pawn, then black can take that with the bishop because the g pawn is pinned. Queen b4 doesn't quite look right to me. It's not terrible, but it just looks a bit weird. And black just gets on with the plan. King in the corner, black just gets on with the plan. I think the engines want you to take the h-pawn here, but white defends, and then you just see an exchange. And the bishop is good here because, as we will see, it's threatening sort of various pins, and there's no light square bishop on the white side to stop it. The knight runs away because it's attacked. Queen comes into the action, which is a good move. It's just creating various threats. In fact, at the end, the queen will deliver the ultimate mating sequence, which is not a surprise. Rook's double, which is kind of natural, but pawn f3 is just such a problem. The engine wants the rook to take on g4 and just give up an exchange, but the position's really falling apart now. Knight takes, and then the bishop pins the rook against the king. I think what happens now is, I think actually white resigned here, but it's not terribly important because this is a forced checkmate. Bishop takes, rook takes, and then you can check at the back with the rook, although the knight goes in the way. You check on a1 with the rook, but actually it's the queen check that finishes the game more quickly. You've got to put the rook in the way, and then you can take with either rook or queen. Well played, Henry. That was a really good game. Very instructive. Classic King's Indian. This is why people play the King's Indian, because A, it's beautiful, fascinating positions, but B, in the classical line, you frequently get these kingside attacks, which are so powerful and hard to handle. People say, I think probably correctly, that the King's Indian is a bit questionable in positional terms, particularly classical positional terms. But I think mathematically it's a sound opening. No one thinks it's busted. I mean, the Latvian gambit is busted. The Grob or the Borg are not correct. Mathematically, King's Indian's correct, and it's interesting. I think the issue with the King's Indian is it gives white a lot of options, so you've got to know what you're doing, and you've got to play dynamically, otherwise you get crushed positionally. I mean, that's the danger. But, there's always dangers in chess openings. That was a great game, Henry. Well played, and see you all soon.